And we're live.
Bam.
Been working on that.
I need a pitch too, I think. Or I need you should tell me your pitch ahead of time and I can think of the right coordinated, we can have a cool back and forth or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't actually work on it, but we totally should for next time.
We also have to continually talk about how we're going to improve the podcast during
Yeah.
the podcast, right?
And also talk about all our fans.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, at least we can get through that pretty quick and get
Yeah.
on to the topic at hand. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's so I'm actually a couple minutes late, and I lost track of time because I'm actually been listening to our backlog of history on here on the YouTubes.
All right. How do you feel?
I mean,
By the
well,
way,
there's
this is the last podcast,
yeah, no, it's good. It helps having it on YouTube. I think I'm listening to it on playback speed of 1.5, just in the background while I work, and it's actually listenable.
right?
I'm on season 0, episode 7 right now.
I mean, we aren't here to compliment ourselves, but listenable is I think a good bar,
Yeah, I mean,
good personal bar.
yeah, I mean it's our voices are nice and soothing. The subject matter hits home for me. It's
You can relate.
yeah. Yeah, there's just something about the stories these guys tell that it sticks with me.
Yeah,
It's
something about
memorable.
that. Yeah, something about those voices, and you're kind of used to it.
Yeah.
Feels very familiar in a way.
So what have you been up to since last week? Have you played anything?
Working, I guess.
Playing at work?
Um, yeah, I mean, not so much, honestly. My kids. I mean, I don't know if you've seen my setup I have at home. I have like the computer with kind of the modern consoles, and then beside it is a CRT with like all the old consoles.
I actually
And
don't think I have seen your new setup.
yeah, I should. I'll send a pic. It's nothing fancy, but it just works for what I want to do. But what tends to happen is that like we have the two systems, and then the kids can kind of play between them.
Hmm.
And like if they both want to just play some game or something. I mean, they play together too, or we kind of play together sometimes too. But what'll often happen is like someone will be playing some game, and it's a one-player game, and whatever kid is not playing or doesn't get to play will just scream constantly until it's their turn. And so what's easier and ridiculous, but easier, is to like get the same game on both and have them both playing the same game. And now since one of these is a retro kind of setup and the other one is like not meant to be retro, but I do have those the ability to play the retro games on it. Um, I'm able to have I can't have both systems running like Untitled Goose Game or something, but I can have both systems running, say, Mario Paint or whatever, kind of
Hmm.
the retro stuff. So I've been supervising some Mario Paint sessions. I've been supervising some what's it called, Harvest Moon, the Super Nintendo Harvest Moon.
Nice.
Believe it or not, yeah,
That was the only one that I mean, I think I only played one other Harvest Moon, but that was the only one I liked.
yeah. I mean, the kids they're still like they'll play stuff, but as soon as an enemy pops up, it's like throw the controller to dad, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. So something like Harvest Moon or Mario Paint is a little more suitable, or Untitled Goose Game. They like Mario, but you walk around the corner and there's an enemy. Boom,
Hmm.
the end, right? So yeah, it's worked kind of well. So I mean, I haven't been doing too much gaming myself, but I've been supervising a little bit.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
we did. I think I mentioned we beat Mario Galaxy 2 recently,
Mm.
and I hate it when games do this, to be honest. But like for me, when you beat the boss, you watch the ending, you're like, "Whew, I did it!" I want to go on to the next game. Like it's not like this particular game is like the thing I want to do the rest of my life. But then
Yeah.
it opens up a bunch of levels, and you're like, and so that's actually it's like I don't want to go on to the next game until I just clear out that and kind of can say I'm totally done with it. But since I beat the game and my state of mind is like, okay, I'm done with this game. Like I have been not motivated to actually go and do that. So probably one of these times when the kids are like, yeah, I want to play Mario, kind of just go finish that up and yeah, move on
Yeah,
to Odyssey or something.
I don't know if it was just my age at the time. I feel like I enjoyed that with Chrono Trigger. Like I enjoyed beating it and then having the new game plus where I could come back and I had full items and I could try to do any of the alternate endings. Um, that felt cool to me, but generally, yeah, I'm in complete agreement. Like when I think it was new Super Mario Bros. 2 or no, it was like man, there's so many. stupid named Mario games. It was
Yeah.
3DS Mario.
It's like they kind of knew that's what people would call the game anyway. I guess it's like, oh, it's the new one for DS, man. New Mario
So,
DS.
so it's Super Mario 3D Land on the 3DS.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, there's you play through the game and you beat it, and then
Is that where they
if
give you Luigi?
I don't remember if it's Luigi, but I think basically, yeah, I don't remember. Because I gave up after I beat Bowser, right? Like
Hmm.
I didn't want to beat 8 more worlds,
Yeah.
so I didn't. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. You know,
I I put it on my list as games that I've beaten though.
well, I mean, yeah, right. Like, I think, I mean, an example of this where it's, I don't know, I guess we could say done well, I guess, is like Symphony of the Night, where it just feels like you're just not done the game yet. Like there's
Yeah,
more game, right? And I guess it's just like maybe if that game came out today and we played it and we were kind of like, once we get to that second half, we might be like, but it's almost like it's such a famous game and it's kind of canonically known that there's that second half. So I think anyone going into it just knows they're going to play through the two halves. I don't know. Maybe I'm just making stuff up. What I do like is when there's like kind of like just like little goodies they give you. I guess like imagine like I don't even know. Imagine a fighting game. Imagine like the new Smash Brothers game or something, and when you beat the whole thing, they unlock a new stage or something. Like sure,
yeah,
play around with it, whatever. But it's not like another X hours of stuff.
yeah,
Not a fan. Not a
yeah. I think
fan.
they did that with like Metal Gear Solid, where they gave you like the bandana or something after
Yeah,
you beat the game.
yeah.
Like, yeah, I don't mind that sort of thing. Okay, so yeah, you do 8 full worlds in this Mario game, and then you unlock the special worlds, and you can unlock playing as Luigi. Um, but yeah, I just didn't have any ambition whatsoever to do these 8 new worlds after I did it. Um,
I might have done them because I'm pretty sure I got Luigi, and I think it was like go ahead and play the whole game again as Luigi, and I was like, yeah, thanks.
well, I wonder if we're thinking of the same game. Are you thinking of the one that was on 3DS? Because the new Super Mario Bros. Wii U Deluxe was like that.
Okay, okay. I'll be honest, I have no idea, but I know I was recently, and by recently I mean like a year ago. I remember I kind of like looked at all the Mario games to see if there was any I hadn't played, and I realized there was a few that I had played through entirely and forgotten. And I
Yeah,
think I pretty much have played all of them. There might have been a few recent ones. At the time, it seemed like there was like maybe one or two I'd missed, but I'm pretty sure
right.
I did play the 3DS one.
Right. So yeah, the Wii U New Super Mario Bros. U, man, the titles are so brutal.
God.
New Super Mario Bros. U, which was on the Wii U. Uh, we got the new Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, which was for Switch, and when you beat that, it unlocks the new Super Luigi U, and then it's like you play through. I think it's basically all the same levels,
Hmm.
but you're now Luigi and you have a timer that's like 99 seconds, and which is hard because he's like so floaty and drifty and weird. Um, and
God.
I had no interest in playing through that at all, but my son was really into it, so he actually convinced me to do it with him. So we did end up beating both games.
Cool. Wow. Okay. Well, I uh, hopefully it wasn't too brutal for you the second time through.
It was different enough that it was actually a much harder game, and I don't know, it wasn't enjoyable once I got into it, but had it not been for him dragging me into it, I wouldn't have done it. And I guess it's kind of the same way, like in you haven't played Mario Odyssey yet, have you?
I booted it up. I mean, it's next on the list, but no, I haven't
Right.
like in earnest. Actually, no, I played. Yeah, let's say no. I played through like 3 levels or something just to test it out,
When you say levels, you mean
like
worlds or
stages of a
moons
world.
or okay.
Yeah, I remember there's like a.
Bonneton.
Yeah, I don't really remember. I can remember. I can envision the stage, but I can't describe it. There's like a bunch of like
It's the Hat
walls.
Kingdom.
Yeah, maybe you're throwing your hat around and you're like running around on the top of the wall. I don't know.
Yeah.
Remember that stage?
That describes
Every level.
yeah. um yeah, so I mean I really enjoyed that game, and my opinion is that's kind of like the best Mario game. I feel like they did an absolute stellar job with the programming that one. But it kind of suffers the same thing. You beat Bowser at the end, and then they unlock more stuff for you to do. And I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm impatient as an adult and I have my backlog that I want to get to and stuff, and I don't want to be burdened with more fun. Um, I want my fun known up front.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, there's more stuff. My son enjoyed it, and therefore we ended up playing it. But had I been left to my own volition after beating the game, when I see the credits, I get that sense of finality and closure, and I'm happy to walk away onto the next experience.
Totally hear you. I mean, I benefit from not like having some sort of strict log of games I want to play through. Like, I would
Yeah.
happily just keep playing it. But just to be honest, I find typically by the end of a game, I'm bored. Honestly, um, it's very rare that like, especially these games that are like 60 hours, that I'm completely enjoying the experience at the same level all throughout the game. I don't know what your
Uh,
experience is.
I don't think that tends to be as much of an issue for me.
Definitely is
Um,
for me, honestly. It's consistently so too. I don't
if
know.
if if I'm not enjoying a game like 5 hours into it, I feel like I'm not going to enjoy it 50 hours in, and so I stop. So I tend to drop out of games pretty early on. Like I dropped out of Bloodborne after less than an hour. Uh, it's I just wasn't feeling it. Um, but for the ones that I do stick through, I tend to enjoy it. I was expecting to be like that. I played through Nier Automata recently,
Hmm.
and that was a game that's kind of advertised as having multiple endings.
Hmm.
And so I said to myself, okay, once I get the first ending, I'm done. I'm not going to play anymore. But it's kind of a false advertisement. It's more like multiple campaigns than multiple endings. Like you're not really redoing the game. You're playing almost a new game.
I see.
So that was one that I got through and I beat that, and I actually felt curious to see what would happen if I start at the new game plus or whatever it was, and I was absolutely surprised that it was a whole new experience, and so then I was just like hooked, and I kept going through it.
I see. Yeah. No. I mean, cool. I don't know. I'm actually trying to think. I haven't played too many long games recently, except maybe Red Dead Redemption 2,
Mhm.
which I was definitely. I mean, that game could have been half as long, just
Yeah.
for me personally. And I mean, I don't know, Mario Galaxy, I guess. Like I liked those, but it's kind of
Hmm.
like now that I've beaten it, it's not that I'm so desperate to go on to the next game. I'm to be honest, I'm just kind of bored.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's fairly common nowadays. So maybe I'm just even more impatient than most people.
Yeah. Maybe. Um. So moving away from the random discussion,
Sure.
the actual topic that we had there was to follow up some more on press reset.
Yeah, I have an admission. I don't know how or why, but I was so sure I had read the next three chapters. It looks like I've only read the next two chapters.
Oh man. So you read chapter 4 and 5 then?
Yes, I did. I didn't. I understand the next one is the baseball player Kurt Schilling, which I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
I know I don't need this uh, whatever like nonfiction book to tell me about. I'm mildly aware of all that stuff. The two chapters I did read were interesting.
Uh, I'm curious on your take on the first one then, chapter 4,
QK.
the lost studio, or what was it called? The missing studio.
Yeah, yeah. Um, hmm.
Because what's interesting for me is I read that and then I realized I pretty much don't remember the chapter at all.
Oh, really? It is interesting to me because I can see like I don't know. It's just I'm trying not to be like I feel very much like as someone outside of the game industry looking
Mhm.
in, there's the bias, of course, that people are only going to highlight certain stories like great successes or terrible experiences, and so like it's
Mhm.
hard for me to get a read of like what a normal experience is or an average experience. And reading this book, it's not like certainly so far anyway. There hasn't just been like a chapter like here's kind of a typical day in the life, and I highlight this guy's career and how it's gone, and it seems okay. It's more like look at this terrible thing, and look at this crazy, and look at this famous person that went through these ups and downs. Of course they're kind of highlighting um, these perhaps not really representative experiences, but it's still very hard to read some of these things and recognize like big name companies that I know of. So these
Mhm.
aren't just like isolated little cases from nobody places, right? These are like big companies making games I've heard of.
Yeah.
and then kind of consistently highlight what seems like, in a way, kind of like the worst work environment possible, right? Like just like losing your job that day and just all these things.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of interesting, I guess. Like there's things I hadn't considered that maybe like if you think of what would put someone in the game industry,
Hmm.
they're not doing it because, I don't know, mom and dad want them to go and be a lawyer or a doctor or a game designer, right? It's like for the love of the craft, blah 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 blah. We talk about that all. Everyone talks about it all the time, but like it seems like for some of these people, just an enormous sacrifice. And like when you reading that the 2K story, I'm like you, I guess. I wouldn't say I forgot the whole thing, but I should have maybe jotted down some details. But it just occurred to me that like maybe I'm just not as resilient a person. I feel like I would have gone through that experience and then looked for a job like outside the game industry or something. But the people going through that experience with the 2K, excuse me, Marin,
Hmm.
or whatever, and like having their
Marin,
studio
I
get
think.
like yanked around and like reassigned projects and canceled and whatnot, and then being pushed out and like kind of finding another company and having the same thing happen and all that kind of stuff. They have quite a resilience to stay in the industry, I guess. And I think another way that I'm seeing it that is skewed is like obviously I have a software background, and that's, I mean, I benefit personally from the fact that's like a fairly in demand job, and there's like a lot of like you could go work at the bank, you could go work at a game company, you could go work at a whatever bigger company, or there's all kinds of different software companies. Like perhaps other roles within the game industry, like if you were a game designer for 10 years and you just get sick of it one day, that might not be as transferable a skill.
Hmm.
So I can, I guess, sympathize with people who like this is their reality and they don't really have some choice to go somewhere else. But it's like it just seems like your choice is either struggle financially generally as an indie or go with big company and just get yanked around. And it's something when you and I had started our own company that I thought a bunch of times, and I think we even kind of had some disagreements about. It's just like, and again, you're working in a more creative industry, creative role than me, so I don't know. You kind of have more. You've been there and gone the ridden the ropes and so forth. But like, I struggled with like this idea of kind of bending, this sounds cheesy, but like bending the vision to do what's to make it like have more mass appeal or make it more successful in a dollar sense or like keep the company afloat and stuff. And it's like I kind of see that from people who do go in creative fields. It's like they're interested in creativity and they're interested in art and so forth, and then they get a degree as a designer or something, and then they're stuck, like taking contracts from car companies to make car ads or something, and it's like the farthest thing from creative. Like I've seen that kind of thing happen, and so that I guess the analog to me, I guess, and again I might be talking out of my ass because I don't know, I haven't been there, but like working for a big company feels like a mix of like some ability to have a lot of passion and be passionate about what you're working on and inject your own personal twist, but ultimately you are still kind of on a dog chain to a bunch of executive people or whatever who really are just trying to make it work money wise.
Hmm.
Um, so it feels like I don't know, just that struggle would drive me crazy, and I feel like I got a lot of that out of the 2K Marin chapter.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one thing that I was heard you say there was that you kind of think that there's some resiliency.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know how true that is. Um, I
I think they
mean,
highlighted some people that left the industry.
well, I'm trying to find some stats on it. I can't find anything concrete here.
Mm-hmm.
But from what I've heard, the average career length of a video game developer is roughly 5 years. So like a lot of people, and there's another survey that was done. What is this? IGDA.org. Oh, the website itself is down, but it's a 2017 survey that was done by the International Game Developers Association. Um, and I guess on that survey, the average employee in the game industry had 2.2 employers within a 5-year period.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, so I feel like if you consider that within a 5-year period, the average person has more than 2 employers and then quits the industry.
I don't want to laugh, but that's, yeah. I mean that's a fairly dire statistic.
like I think there's a problem that a lot of this behavior is kind of normal. Like,
Yeah.
and there's just enough bright-eyed, passionate people coming up through the school system and stuff that they're like, oh man, I want to
Yep.
make games, that they don't really have a problem just churning through the meat grinder.
Yep, that's the problem, isn't it? It's a supply demand thing, right?
It's weird for me now because I was kind of noticing this when I was in film too. Like, uh, I I can't think of too many people I worked with. Like when I was at Dr. D in Australia, I think there was around 500 people at the studio, and I think that there would have been less than 20 that were over the age of 40.
Yeah.
Um, it was a pretty significant percentage of people that were young. And I felt like this was kind of like the other studios that I was at was much smaller, but I felt like it was very similar at the other studios. And it's the same in games too. And it's weird for me now because I mean I'm at an indie studio, so it's hard to be statistically significant when there's only around 30 people. But I feel
Mhm.
like I'm maybe the fourth oldest at the company right now.
Oh wow, that's
Uh,
interesting.
in and I'm 37 right now. Um,
Yep.
it was interesting because I mean I was making a push trying to get some young blood in. Like I've got a junior that I'm working with right now, and I was really making a push to hire someone junior. Whereas when I was at EA before that, all of the effects team were senior artists. There was no one in their 20s on our team.
How does that even happen? Are they all coming from film, or are they all coming from smaller companies? Is like EA such a great place for effects artists? They just managed to hire
Um,
the senior people.
well, I think that just tended to be, at least for that particular studio, they wanted senior artists more
Hmm.
than they wanted anyone else. I mean, EA is flush with cash, and I guess they feel like, you know, uh, despite whatever attrition rate there is, they can afford to just bring in new people who already know what they're doing instead of trying to build something that, you know, you get a junior and try to encourage them to stay in the industry.
Yep.
um,
Yeah.
so I don't know. It didn't feel reading this book's in some ways depressing.
In some ways, I mean, it's certainly not like
It
inspiring me to make a career change, I guess,
yeah, yeah,
which I didn't expect to do. I mean, I think the author lays it out pretty plainly that it's going to be like a focus on the turbulence and so forth.
yeah. I don't
Yeah.
know. It's weird because I'm at the companies that I've been haven't been bad,
Hmm.
but it's enough that like I don't know, because I'm a bit of a workaholic and have a young kid, and it's my personality type leans towards a little bit of depression and anxiety and stuff. So I feel that now and then, but then I'm reading this and realizing like how good I have it compared to other places.
Wait, so this is a good thing. I was going to say we don't need to read the rest, but yeah, I
uh,
mean, and me too, right? Like I'm still kind of, believe it or not, I'm not. It's not a serious thing necessarily, but it is quite easy or even occasional for me to like lay in bed and just think, what would it have been like if I was doing like games or if I launched my own thing or whatever.
yeah,
And part of that, like I have it very good, but part of that is like maybe I'd have, I don't know. I wouldn't say less of a workload, but a workload that's aligned very much with something that's like extremely fun for me, and that kind of thing.
hmm
So like just picking the things about my life that are kind of maybe more stressful, or like I would change if I could, and then I
yeah,
read a book like this. It's like the trade off is definitely very large, very
yeah,
very large. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's weird. Like sometimes you feel like you really should just put your head down, and I think I mentioned in the past I've worked at like a print studio where I'm doing flyers and stuff, and it's just a job.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
don't need to be passionate about it. You need to just show up and get it done and earn your pay. And it's weird. Like reading, I'm trying to skim through it right now. So this chapter was about like the 2K Marin, which was basically they had a pet project that everyone was excited about, but they were told to work on an XCOM game that
They didn't care about.
nobody cared about. Like they didn't think customers were going to care about it because it wasn't a tactical game, and they themselves didn't care about it. They had a project they wanted to work on. They weren't allowed to work on it because the publisher or the people that own them is telling them what to work on, and it's like they're merging teams together that and neither of them can kind of agree on who's taking ownership on stuff. And I don't know, it's it's I don't know, relatable in some ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it sucks. being in that role where like you're passionate and you want to bring something to the table and create, and like games are about fun.
Hmm.
Like the whole point of playing a game is to have fun. We're like toy makers. We're trying to create experiences that people are going to enjoy, and it's hard to do that when you're working on something you don't think is fun.
I have a random question, and it's something that would probably be like it would be better to just look at data or something. But like,
Hmm.
it kind of, I mean, I remember something you had said previously, like in, I don't know, high school or whatever, when we're kind of thinking about our careers, you thought it would be interesting maybe to go work in games, but you didn't think it was realistic, and so you kind of went the
Yeah.
film route, and then
Hmm.
realized there was this opportunity to work in games, and kind of
Hmm.
made the switch at one point. I feel like with all of the indie games kind of storming out around like the 2013, 14, 15 era, and that becoming like a really uh what's the word, serious, I guess, thing. Like, it's not just like, there's
Hmm.
lots of success stories in there, people are paying a lot of attention to it, and the big companies are even like unload, like Nintendo is putting indie games on their store. That felt crazy.
Hmm.
Like, if someone
Yeah,
told me,
it's more open today than it
yeah,
typically.
like if someone told me that was something that would happen in like 2005, everyone would have laughed. Come on, like if two guys just start their own little thing and they're putting it on the Nintendo official store, like, no way, right?
Hmm.
But it just seems like, I feel like, I wonder. I feel like back when we were in high school, it just seemed like a harder industry to get into, maybe. Whereas now, it seems to me to be super easy to get into. It's going to be hard to make a career out of, or
Hmm.
maybe be hired by a big company. But I myself tomorrow could quit my job and go and register a indie game company and then just start programming a game from home on my computer, right? Like, so could anyone else. Like, it's
Yeah.
trivially easy.
Yeah.
And so I'm just wondering if like that has fueled this maybe supply and demand kind of imbalance to some extent. And then those people would kind of end up, maybe more people want to, they think they're going to do an indie company someday, so they're going to go AAA first and learn the ropes, and then they kind of go through it and burn out and whatever. I don't know. I'm kind of speculating randomly.
I mean, it's possible. I don't know. I think there's a lot of people that just have no intention of ever going indie. They want to work on these big projects. Like I think I don't remember if it was last time or the time before. I was kind of mentioning the same thing. Like you were kind of asking about like why would someone as a game programmer
Mhm.
want to go to an EA or something. Like if you imagined that the fun would be like in making your own engine, not making an engine for other people. And I don't know. I feel like there is a large number of people who want to do that. They want to make something grand and epic that is beyond the scope that just five people could do from a bedroom. Um,
Yeah.
certainly, which is weird because I mean, certainly, like you look at like the Final Fantasy games on the Super Nintendo or like River City Ransom or whatever. Like they had small teams back then pumping out entire games. But
Yep.
but like that AAA thing, I guess we discussed that like back in the era of the PlayStation 2 where they started doing like the pre-rendered movies and stuff. Like it's taken it to the point now where you just can't make something on the same scope as a modern Final Fantasy with a team of 16 people.
Yeah. I guess that's where I almost think it's less about, my point, I guess, was that it's less about that kind of thing necessarily, and more
Hmm.
like you'd have to be interested specifically in game programming problems, right? Like, you could go
Yeah.
work at some other big company on exciting projects doing like some crazy, like, I don't know, healthcare startup, machine learning to like scope out diseases or something. And depending what the person's into, if they're just into like technical problems and stuff like that, that's a much more rewarding. I can't say that. It depends on the person, but I guess in the way my brain works, it's certainly more, I don't know, impactful across the world, and it's definitely compensated better. And so you have to be very interested in game specific big projects.
Hmm.
And again, I'm just talking in my ass. This is just how my brain works. But when I think of games, what's exciting to me is more like the game design and
Hmm.
in the game world. And so like just simply doing programming to support that stuff just feels like background work. Like that has to be technically interesting to me. Whereas like
Yeah.
almost like the healthcare startup. So this is, yeah, I mean, everyone has their interests. I guess I'm just saying from my point of view,
Mm.
which is extremely, who cares, right? But it feels like a very large sacrifice to move out of other very interesting technical areas to, and I would argue, you know, I don't know, I guess more interesting technical area, but it's still kind of the same technical work, right? You're not switching over to being an artist or something.
Mm.
I don't know, just some thoughts, random rambling.
Yeah, I don't know that I really have a follow
Yeah,
up.
it's not like you know the mind necessarily of some sort of a game programmer or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right though. Like if I was working on an indie game, part of it is that I'm simply implementing the designs, I guess, right? Like I don't know, maybe it's like building a house. Like if you're doing kind of architecty stuff and you're the
Mm.
carpenter and you like plan out the whole house and you build it, that'd be very fun versus someone just
Yeah.
handing you a plan and you just kind of go put up the walls and like
You
you've done
just
this a
go
million
IKEA it.
times. Yeah, right. You know this stuff, so boom, boom, boom. Like there's
Yeah.
no the creative part has been kind of sucked out of it, I guess. I don't
Yeah.
know. Probably someone could come and shoot all those points down a million times over. It's just kind of
And
how I feel
and
personally.
maybe that's part of the reason there is such a I don't know, a churn where people only last a few years. Maybe there it is full of people who want to be the next Hironobu Sakaguchi or something, and then
Yeah.
they get into a big company that's making these big games, thinking that they're going to revolutionize everything, and they realize, I'm part of a team of a couple hundred people. I don't get to have a say. Maybe that's part of it. Like maybe they're
Hmm.
just getting out because it's not the dream that they expected it to be, versus getting out because I don't know, it's a crap industry. I mean, it's hard looking at the 2K thing because it was really just a story about people working on stuff that they didn't want to work on.
Yeah.
Whereas, like the next chapter, I felt somewhat I, like so the second chapter was about Zach
Yeah.
Mumbach.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. Working at EA, and I both uh, didn't like this guy when I'm starting to read about him. I'd never heard of him before, but like when I'm reading about this guy who just like shows up and is working like 16-hour days, and like he's talking about how important that is, and everyone's like that. It's like I it drives me nuts that there's people like that are normalizing
Yeah.
working too much.
Yep.
Because yeah, like they said, like it becomes this culture where everyone kind of feels like they need to do it because everyone else is doing it. I mean, I'm sure we've talked about that once or
Hmm.
twice in the past, and it's not something I agree with. So I am immediately not liking this guy as I'm reading him. But then, like, there was one sentence here. I'm gonna have to call it up on my phone. Um, on one of the pages, he finally kind of sees the light
Yeah. Yeah. Near
and
the end. Yeah.
near the end, and now I'm starting to identify with him a little bit more. Uh, and it's saying like he was crunching for a little bit, but suddenly he's like realizing that, like,
Making other people
he,
rich.
he he'd always thought that you have to be like the Kobe Bryant. I always thought as needing to be like Leonardo da Vinci. Like you need to put in as much practice as you can to be like the elite of the elite and stuff. But then he's realizing that he always thought he needed to put in extra hours to be the elite of the elite to be Kobe Bryant. But the people who actually got paid like superstar athletes were working 40-hour weeks. The people who had crunched at Visceral were now looking for new jobs. Even a top salary like $100,000 a year wouldn't go very far in San Francisco.
Hmm.
I'm tired of working 80-hour weeks so that people like Patrick Soderlund can get a new car," said Mumbach. Uh,
Yep.
I mean, that's why I quit EA,
Yep.
right? Like it felt, it feels really weird when there's hundreds of people working, and it's just like whether or not a studio is going to open or close doesn't necessarily have to do with performance. Like people really liked the Visceral games. They liked the Dead Space games. There's a lot of angry people out there that Visceral closed,
Hmm.
and they weren't allowed to. I don't know. I guess we mentioned that last week, or maybe a week before too, where we're talking about how like why would I give you $1 and get $1.10 back if I could
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
like that? That's it's. I don't enjoy that corporate world, and seeing the people at the top earning millions, like literal the amount of money that it would take to run an entire studio per year. And I don't feel that executives uh,
Pull their
are
weight.
that responsible for the success of everyone below them, that they deserve that sort of salary.
It's really weird for me because I don't know. Like I always take like devil's advocate with myself or something, and
Hmm.
I'm not advocating for like those people making millions of dollars. It's your knee jerk reaction to that is like, what in what world does that make sense, right? I'm like how
Like, why does one person need a salary comparable to 100 other people?
oh, they shouldn't. It's ridiculous.
Right.
Yeah, I have no idea what the economics of the game company are. I think
Yeah.
that's another. Well, I'm just speculating, or I sound like
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
to put on my robot hat and not care about people's lives and anything like that. Maybe that's another supply and demand thing. Like you have all these young people lining up for these jobs, and so the company can just be like, well, we're going to pay you really honestly less than the value of the work you're doing, right?
Yeah.
To not even commensurate with it, and then people aren't certainly the qualified people aren't lining up for the leadership roles.
Hmm.
I guess like I'm not saying he should be paid millions of dollars or whatever. It just I don't know like how does that happen, right? Like you'd think if people were lining up for that leadership role, then the company could offer a position for less money. And maybe it's I guess like you see like these game companies pull out some leadership role person from like Amazon or something, right? Where like all the salaries are elevated, and so they have to compete with those companies for leadership
Yeah.
positions, but they don't compete with those companies for like game designers or artists.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, I don't know. I'm not in no way am I justifying it in a million years. It's disgusting and it's crazy. I'm almost wondering like it's I guess my point is it seems like it's easy to look at that guy and say you're a scumbag. You work 40-hour weeks when we're dying, and maybe he is. I don't have context there. You have more context than me. But it almost
Well,
seems like it.
to be
It
clear, I'm not painting a picture of Peter in specific. I'm just saying in general, I'm
yeah,
not a fan of executives.
yeah, sure. But I mean, it almost seems like a systematic problem that
Yeah.
that comes to be in that case. Like, if I was to ever so slightly defend that, whatever his name is, like, was he supposed to like? I mean, the company offered him that salary with the job of
Yeah.
coming on and delivering this game and cutting costs and whatever. And he's just like again, robot hat, right? Who cares about the
Hmm.
humans involved in this process? But company X has offered me a salary of X millions, Y millions to come on and deliver the game and sell Z amount.
Yeah.
I'm just, maybe that's I guess like you see that kind of executive absolutely everywhere, including in my industry. So I can just see maybe where like someone from other industry that's used to doing this in a certain way and it's not such a chop shop, they come to the games industry and they just realize like, well, these employees are in their mind anyway,
Hmm.
you know, like resources and can be cut and so on and so forth. I
Yeah.
don't know. It's just like again, I'm not defending that process at all. It's extremely unfortunate and sad, but I'm just wondering like how would you go and fix that systematically? This
You
goes back
don't.
to like something I was saying last time too, where like as soon as the company goes public,
Yeah.
again, this again is I'm not
This
saying
this is just the
yeah
problem with capitalism in
yeah
general.
right yeah exactly
That
like I'm not saying it's a wonderful system or just it's like I know people who say like if you've broken the law you should go to jail and
Mhm.
they're very like kind of right wing people and they argue for like the war on drugs. They don't look at the statistics or think any deeper than that. They just say, well, the law is no drugs, so all these people should just go to jail. That's it, no
Yeah.
questions. To start bending on that means the law isn't as valuable and blah 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 blah. And it kind of, I get that. It's like when you look at capitalism, it's the same thing. Like you can make all kinds of arguments about why capitalism in its purest form is so wonderful, but it really chomped up people and spits them out, right? And so
Yeah.
like, I don't know. It's just a weird thing that would require some sort of systematic fix, I guess. And you look at game companies that are public, and from a purely capitalistic point of view, you have a promise to your shareholders to do everything you can to maximize profits, right? Of course, you're going to put out a competitive salary for some executive to yank him out of Amazon and pay him or her, typically him,
Yeah.
X tens of millions, and then he's going to just like lay off half the workforce because they're expendable in his mind. I don't know. It's just it.
Yeah.
You can see why that happens, but it sucks. And so, what's the fix? It's just a weird thing. I find like I know I'm blabbing a bit. I find like one thing I don't know. I'm not trying to get on my high box, my soapbox. it's it's very easy to cite all these societal problems and complain about them, but when you don't then proceed to offer a fix, I don't feel like things are really moving forward. Or raising awareness is good and stuff, but like it's kind of like in this book, I'm reading it, and the author definitely feels the same way we do, and is highlighting all of these. Like there's it's not stated directly necessarily, but it definitely comes up a bunch of times, or is quoted from people saying like I'm not comfortable with the executives making all the money and all this kind of thing, like kind of the latent
Mhm.
criticism of the system. But I don't come out with any sort of feeling of how to fix it, I guess. And that would be
Yeah.
an interesting focus, not necessarily for this book, but something. I don't know, just a thought.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you definitely have to spend more time in investigating
hmm
what is the problem that's happening before you can come up with a solution. And I mean, this book certainly, I think, is more taking the approach of like raising awareness of just what the
Yeah.
the state of these companies is, more so than trying to necessarily come up with a solution.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think that's fair. It's fair.
but yeah, that's about the extent of it, I guess. You haven't had a chance to read about Mr. Baseball yet.
No, I kind of remember when that happened, and it was like such a thing. Yeah, I'll have to save that one for next time. How many chapters are there in this thing, anyways? There 9 or 8?
There are
Epilogue is
9
not
plus an epilogue,
9
which is
plus
5
an epilogue.
pages.
9 is human cost, human solution. Wow. Yeah. I mean, I've mostly been enjoying the book, so it's not a matter of. I honestly I thought I had read chapter 6, and then I opened it and I saw that the bookmark was shoved in there, and I was like, oh, whoops.
Nice.
So, yeah, I'm awesome. I'm awesome.
Yeah. So I mean, we'll have to see how revelatory the remaining chapters are before I'm going to commit to a third podcast about the book. But I do still. It's weird because I work in the industry, so it's more relatable and more depressing maybe than if you weren't in the industry, and it's just like neat trivia.
You
It's
criticizing
like,
my like way out there views.
well, I mean, it's interesting just because, like, there's names in here like Patrick Soderlund or Rod Ferguson, and
Hmm.
these might be names that people are familiar with just from reading articles, but like the people that have worked at companies that I've worked at, and so it tends to ground it a little bit more. And
Yeah.
I don't know, it's I don't like the drama side of stuff. I don't like having to think about beyond how can we make this thing more fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, that kind of calls into what I was saying, like back when we were trying to do the game company. That was my focus, and I mean,
Yeah,
it was also like how can I make it fun in what fun is to me. I guess like I don't know. It's like when you try and make something for mass appeal, or you try and make something
yeah,
for
something that's
kind
going to
of
have Mass Effect.
mass
Ha ha ha.
effect to a smaller group. Yeah, it's going to work
Yeah,
better. Um, but I don't know. I guess that's kind of the call out.
yeah, um, yeah. That's definitely the difference that I noticed being at a small company. And I mean, I'm still at a company. It's not my company, right? So
Hmm.
the difference that I noticed being at the big studio and just being kind of like a cog in the wheel, knowing that you're earning uh, not even a tenth of what the company owners are, versus being at a smaller place where you feel like you're actually getting a say in what's
Yep.
going on. And then I guess I can totally imagine it, uh, how it could work out nicely if you're like the Super Meat Boy gang or something, and making just like a 2-person project. But I mean, you and I can both attest to the fact that it's difficult to make that work.
Yeah.
Um, the small team, you definitely have to do everything. You don't get to just be an idea person, um, and money's an issue.
Yeah. It's I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. Like I just feel like our parents' generation has this attitude, kind of super generalizing here, but like work is work, and you're not supposed to like it, and
Hmm.
it's almost weird to try and align. I guess to expect some alignment
Yeah,
with like your passions that are fun and your job, and if you have that as a bonus, great, good luck, good for you. But the fact that you have any expectation to be able to do that is like outrageous or something, right? Like you kind of have people. That's an older way of thinking, right?
yeah,
And I guess like especially probably for those folks, like a game industry job just is very much that, right? Like you're I wonder how many people find themselves in the game industry because it was the maximally uh, whatever lucrative deal they could find with their skill set versus like they want to do that and that's what their passion is.
yeah. I'm sure it happens for some people.
Yeah, those
Um,
executives, it's probably happening for them, I imagine, in some senses, in some instances. Yeah, a lot of these stories, kind of, at least the way the author described it, there was almost like a focus on the fact that like the executives kind of didn't know games, I guess.
it seems that way. I
Yeah.
mean, if we drag up the name Patrick Soderlund again, like he's seen as kind of like the heartless villain in that EA chapter,
Hmm.
because like his is one of the few names that's actually brought up. It's not completely fair to characterize him as someone who doesn't know games, because like he was responsible for like the Frostbite engine that
Hmm.
was being used. Like he came from working in games and rose to the top, right? Like it's not quite the same as say oh man, I can't remember his name, but the guy that was in charge of Sega America. Um, but like he came from advertising,
Yeah.
and he like advertised for Mattel, and he was like responsible for like I think the Flintstones vitamin tablets.
Oh, trying to search stuff on my phone while we talk. I couldn't find his name. I panicked because my phone
It
made sound.
starts with a K, I think. Kaczynski,
Sure.
Sega
It's like
Kazin.
anything, right? It's like the Pepsi guy went and ran Apple for a few years. Like, was he a tech savvy,
Yeah,
tech passionate guy? You know?
Tom Kalinske.
Yeah.
So he's an American businessman best known as having worked for Mattel, where he was credited reviving Barbie and Hot Wheels, launching Masters of the Universe, and then being promoted to CEO. Then he was the CEO of Matchbox. Then he was recruited to be the CEO of Sega of America. Right? Like
Hmm.
he knew sales, he knew how to make fun things, but he it wasn't games in particular
Hmm.
wasn't his forte. So
Yeah.
um, I don't know. It's all a world. It's interesting because it's a young industry too. It's not like I don't know shoemaking or something where there's like hundreds of years of tradition to go with
Yeah.
it.
It's young and it's changing too, right? Like, I
Yeah.
imagine working in the game industry today is nothing like it would have been 20 years ago,
No.
30 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Which, I mean, a lot of the more technological industries are going to be like that. But I don't know. I would guess, especially with games, it seems particularly fast moving.
Yep. Anyway, I don't know that we are wrapping up with any sort of particular conclusion,
Moral.
but we do got to wrap up.
Indeed.
So I guess
Cool.
that's going to be it.
Are you playing games? You didn't. I didn't pose the question to you.
I no, I played I think 3 hours of Last of Us Part Two
Oh
last
yeah,
week,
rock on.
and those 3 hours are the only gaming time I got in this week.
Cool. How is it? Are you enjoying it?
I am enjoying it. And I've got a weird project associated with that I'm doing, where I'm actually streaming that and making a paper journal with photographs and stuff in it, which it could go into some depth, but I don't feel like I've got the time right now to.
We can. We'll continually plug it and include links in the YouTube uploads.
Yeah, yeah. But no, it's a solid game. I mean, if you enjoyed the first one,
Yeah.
I personally don't see a reason not to enjoy this one. I understand there were lots of bros out there who didn't enjoy it, but it seems like a good game to me so far.
Cool. All right. Well, topic for another time, perhaps.
All right,
All right. Well, enjoy.
all right. Have a good one.
Yeah. Take care, man.